Ikshan Ganapathi, who has observed birds from over 13 states of India and till now has observed 511 bird species. And the second speaker, Aniketa Kabir, has observed 278 species till date. Also, we have Agha with us, who has studied the eBird database to show that Powai Lake hosts 88% of bird species in 2% of the area of SJNP. He'll be sharing this useful database with us. All the speakers are residents of IIT Bombay and will be talking about the prominent species of birds found at the Powai Lake. I request the speakers to share their valuable insights with us.
I hope I'm visible and audible.
Yeah, guys, it'll be nice for you to first introduce yourselves and what got you into all this before you start your presentation.
So
Your
I,
presentation.
okay, yeah, sure. So I think that was a fairly good introduction about how much we birded, not just here in Mumbai but also in other parts of the country. But it's more than just the birding. We also do photography and try to get involved with these kinds of conservation initiatives. So, and I mean that's what we're really passionate about. So I think we feel it's a great privilege that Professor Vishwanathan and the Abhyodaya team giving us this opportunity to talk about this. So
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah.
yeah, would Arghya like to say something?
No, guys, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna start now. So I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Can you make it in presentation mode
Yeah,
so that
yeah. 1 minute. 1 minute. It's visible, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So let's before we actually start talking about. Excuse me. Someone's mic is on. Excuse me. Can. Okay. So let's. So before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes,
Ikshan. Sorry, I muted everyone, so you can start. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So my screen is visible, right, to everyone?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. So before we actually start talking about the birds, we thought we'd just touch upon the kind of habitats we have here at Powai Lake. Now, in previous talks, people have addressed this topic in much more depth, but we thought it's important we talk about this, so sort of give some context about what we're going to say ahead. So this landscape can be mostly categorized into three main habitats, which are the open water area of the lake, the wetlands, and the woodlands. So first off, we have the open water area. This is the habitat for multiple fish species and other aquatic animals that inhabit the lake bed. This area has comparatively very little bird life, as most of the birds that come here just feed on the prey and then move to other habitats. And this is also the area where one can see crocodiles swimming sometimes. Next, we have the wetlands. So the wetlands are usually marked by these reeds and other plants that grow at the edge of the water and the land. Now, this kind of habitat creates small sheltered pools, which are great places for frogs, insects, and other invertebrates. And apart from that, there's a lot of bird species that are just found here, and they spend their entire life among these reeds, as they get all of the resources that they need to survive here. And unfortunately, as we know, wetlands are often considered wasteland and for some reason, and they're cleared off in so-called lake beautification projects, without ever considering the negative impact it has on the unique biodiversity found here. Then finally, we have the woodlands. Now, most people know that woodlands have a great variety of life. This is possible because the habitat is differentiated into multiple layers, like the woodland floor, the understory, and the canopy. This allows many more species to be present in a much smaller area. Uh, and this is the woodlands around the Powai Lake are a great place to observe many species of reptiles, insects, mammals, and apart from that, many species of birds are completely dependent on this habitat. And apart from these main habitats, there are multiple microhabitats and transition zones, which have a mix of the major habitat types. So, for example, where the wetlands and the open water meet, species from both sides can be seen. And apart from that, there are some species that are only found in this transition zone. Also, this area is where a lot of the large clusters of water hyacinth gather. And we know that water hyacinth is not really good for animals in large numbers, and it also carpets the blue water of the lake that many people enjoy seeing. But it's in regulated amounts. The water hyacinth is quite important for the ecosystem's nutrient cycles. And then we also get temporary streams that form within the woodlands during the monsoon. These make water more accessible to the small woodland birds that find it difficult to come to the wetlands in search of water. And apart from that, it gives more places for other microfauna like insects and other invertebrates. So finally, let's start with the birds. So here we have the blue-tailed bee-eater. It's one of the most colorful birds we find here at the wetlands. They're migratory mostly, and they arrive around late September, early October, which really marks the birding season here. They can usually be seen perching on these sorts of dry branches from where they scan the area for flying insects like dragonflies and bees, as the name suggests. Once they locate their prey, they take off and chase them skillfully through the air and then return back to their perch, where they beat the insect on the branch to immobilize it before feeding on it. Next, we have the blights. Yes?
Maybe interrupt you a little bit along the way?
Is there any question or something?
Yeah, I just want to ask you, you said these birds come only in September. Where do they come from?
So, can we please do the question answers at the end?
Sure, we can do that.
Interrupted. Okay, thank you. So now the Blythe's warbler. This is quite a small bird, only about 12 to 14 centimeters in length. But this bird travels a very large distance. They mostly breed in Central Asia and Eastern Europe, from where the entire population of millions of individuals fly to the Indian subcontinent to spend their winters. They also have a very distinct call, which can be heard in the woods and the wetlands, signaling their arrival. Now, here's the gray-headed swamp hen. Earlier, this bird was called the purple swamp hen, which honestly describes the bird much better, as you can see from the photographs. But the taxonomists have changed the name, so we just go with it. They also have very long toes that help them wade through the marshy areas and also allows them to grasp on these reeds and other vegetation that are found here, as they mostly feed on this kind of stuff. Next, we have the watercock. The watercock is a relative of the swamp hen, but it's much more shy and prefers much larger reed beds of the wetlands, like we have here at the Powai Lake. Now, Powai Lake is actually one of the best places to see this bird in Mumbai. And apart from that, this bird faces the threat of poaching in many places in its range. But the birds here seem to be not scared of people, which probably indicates that they don't have the same kind of pressures here. So it's very important that we preserve this habitat. And also, they have a diet similar to that of the swamp hens of the reeds and the vegetation, but they seem to feed a lot more on invertebrates like insects and worms. The white-breasted water hen. This is again a relative of the swamp hen and the watercock, but this bird prefers more of the transition zone between the woodlands and the wetlands. This also feeds on a variety of things like insects, small fish, and grass shoots. But it has been seen in areas where there are a lot of people. They've become quite bold and they've started feeding on things like bread and grain that people leave behind for crows and pigeons. And a major advantage this bird has over its relatives, which spend their entire life in the reeds. These birds actually roost, that is, sleep and nest in trees. And obviously, spending their time in trees helps them avoid predators better. Next, we have the Indian spotbill duck. It's probably the only species of resident waterfowl we have here at the lake. Now, waterfowl basically includes birds like ducks, geese, and swans. And because of its resident status, it is very much dependent on the lake's wetlands being intact for breeding, as they prefer to nest within the reeds. They mostly feed on grasses and other aquatic vegetation found in the area in pairs or in small groups. So here's lesser whistling duck. This is another waterfowl species that we see here, and it prefers a similar habitat to that of the Indian spotbill duck, but they seem to be much more reliant on the thickness of the reeds, as that's where they hide from predators. Now, these birds form much larger groups, 50 to 60 individuals, in fact. So here on the right, you can see a fairly large flock of lesser whistling ducks flying in front of the Hiranandani buildings. And the bird used to be a resident in the past, but we're not sure of its status right now, as sightings have started becoming less regular and more erratic over the past few years. This could be possibly due to a changing habitat or even poaching. The Eurasian marsh harrier. This is a species of raptor. Now, raptors are birds like eagles, hawks, and kites. This bird breeds in Europe and Central Asia and winters in the Indian subcontinent near wetlands. It's quite heavily reliant on the wetlands because it mostly feeds on other wetland animals like ducks, water hens, and fish. And it even roosts within dry reed patches. So that's another reason why it's so dependent on the reeds. And here on the right, we have the male of the species, which has this whitish coloration on the wing. And here on the left is the female, which lacks that white coloration. And apart from that, it has a lighter brown in the upper body region, especially around the head. Now we have the cormorants. There are two species of cormorants found at the lake, the Indian cormorant and the little cormorant. Species are found in the wetlands and the open water where they can be seen diving for fish, which is the primary prey. A special adaptation these birds have is the lack of a waxy coating that is present on other water birds. Now, because the lack of this coating, they're able to dive much deeper in search of fish. But because of this, there is a side effect that they are unable to fly until their wings completely dry out. So they usually can be seen sitting with their wings open on poles and trees. The Oriental Darter. This is a relative of the cormorants and employs similar strategies of fishing and prefers the similar kinds of habitats. However, it's much larger compared to the cormorants we have here. It's also called the snake bird because of its long neck. So when the bird surfaces out of water after fishing, its neck and head appear as if a snake is peering out of the water. The darter had actually completely disappeared from the lake in the past few years due to increasing pollution. But luckily, last year, one individual made its way here and could be observed with the cormorants for several months. Now, this problem of habitat degradation and pollution face them in other parts of their range, hence they're classified as near threatened by the IUCN. The mugger crocodile. Now, I know this is not a bird, but we decided to include it because it's the only species of megafauna found here at the lake, wild megafauna that we have here at the lake. Now, these massive reptiles spend their time in the wetlands waiting patiently for their prey to come within striking distance. But it's fairly difficult to see them there because they're hiding in the vegetation, and the water really masks their presence. So it's much easier to see them when they're traveling through the open water area as they go from one wetland patch to another, as I said earlier. Now, Powai Lake, as we know, is quite famous for its crocodiles within Mumbai, although I don't think there has been a proper census yet to determine their populations. And apart from that, not much is known about their behavior and about the behavior and natural history of the lake's crocodiles. This could be possibly due to a lack of studies, or it could be the a lack of. It also could be because of a lack of access to this information publicly. And unfortunately, due to destruction of their preferred habitat and poaching, they're classified as vulnerable by the IUCN and are also listed on the Schedule 1 of the Indian Wildlife Protection Act. The gray wagtail. This bird gets its name from its habit of wagging its tail up and down as it forages for insects like mosquitoes in the wetland pools. The species is known to breed all over Eurasia, but possibly the populations that come to India during the winter are from Central Asia and in the Himalayas. And it's also been seen that individual birds seem to return to the same wintering spots every year, according to some observations, like a particular marsh pool among the reeds or someone's garden pond. The Ashiprenia. This is one of the most abundant birds we have here at the wetland and woodland area, and it has a similar diet to that of the wagtail, but in terms of behavior, it is quite different. It is a resident species, and especially during the breeding season, we can see it perching atop these tall reeds, as can be seen here in this photograph. From there, they call out to their future partner using their cheerful song. The Alexandrine Parakeet. This is the largest species of parrot found in India. However, because of this, they're quite prevalent in the illegal bird trade. Because for some reason, people really like to own parrots. Now, because of this, they're classified as near threatened by the IUCN. They nest in tree cavities of palm trees, and they mostly feed on fruits. And because of that, they're considered an important seed disperser. And here on the right, we have the male of the species that has this black and pink band. I don't know if the pink is very prominent, but the black definitely is. So this black and pink band is present on the male's neck, or on the female, that is not there. So that's how we differentiate between the male and the female. Next, the white-browed bulbul. This species is endemic to peninsular India and Sri Lanka, which means it's not found anywhere else in the world other than these places. It prefers thick patches of foliage in the woodland and where the bird forages for small fruits and berries. And because the bird mostly spends its time in these thickets, it's much better to locate them using their melodious call. Then we have the orange-headed thrush. This bird mostly spends its time on the woodland floor as it hops about, flipping leaves and other organic matter in search of insects, worms, and other invertebrates that might be hiding underneath all of this. And as it moves through the area, one can easily make out its unmistakable orange color. The yellow-footed green pigeon. Now, on hearing the word pigeon, most people think of the gray-colored feral pigeons that make themselves at home in our skyscrapers. But the yellow-footed green pigeon, despite being a relative of that bird, prefer to live in the woodland canopy where they forage for fruits in small flocks. Interestingly, this bird is the only species of pigeon in India that has these yellow feet. Now, the woodlands around Powai Lake shelter two subspecies of this bird. One is the resident one, and the other subspecies migrates here from northeast India during the winters. So the one on the left here, this is the resident subspecies, and this one on the right is the migratory one. Then we have the Indian golden oriole. This is a very brightly colored bird, as you can see, and this visits the woodland areas during the winters from other parts of India. And like the green pigeon, it spends most of its time in the canopy feeding on fruits and insects. Then we have the common hawk cuckoo. The common hawk cuckoo is actually known as the papiha in Hindi and is depicted in many folk tales, poems, songs due to its melodious call and association with the monsoon. Now, this bird is a relative of the Asian quail. Therefore, it exhibits something known as brood parasitism. That is, it lays eggs in the nests of other bird species. And in the case of this cuckoo, the host species is a bird known as the jungle babbler. Now, the bird can easily be heard during the monsoon in the wooded areas. but they're much more easily seen during the winters. So the bird on the left here, this is the common hawk cuckoo, and the one on the right here is the jungle babbler, the host species. Next, the woodpeckers. The woodland area here is home to two species of woodpeckers, the black-rumped flameback and the Rufus woodpecker. So the flameback actually was never observed in the lake area until a few years back, and since then it has become fairly common. Now this could be this could be possibly due to a reduction in the amount of foliage, as flamebacks prefer a much more open habitat. Now, the flameback nests in tree cavities that it excavates itself by, well, pecking at the tree trunk, like how you would expect most woodpeckers to do it. But the Rufus woodpecker has a very different strategy. It actually nests inside the colony of an arboreal species of ant. Now, what makes this thing more interesting is that the ant species is a prey of the Rufus woodpecker. But during the nesting season, the prey and the predator enter a symbiotic relationship. So in this, the woodpecker doesn't feed on the ants while its eggs are in the colony, and it also protects the ants from other rival woodpeckers. And on the other hand, the ants protect the bird's eggs from other smaller predators. So Aniketa will now continue with the rest of the talk.
Yeah. Hello, am I audible now?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having me here. I'll just share my screen 1 minute. I think it's. Yeah, it's not really allowing this. Seems to be some issue. 1 minute.
You are co-host, so you should be able to.
Yeah, the share screen, the button is blocked off for me. It's not.
So I have made you again presenter
Ah,
also.
yes. Now it's coming. Just share. So is the scene?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. So, yeah, before I start, I'd like to say that we also used this website called Birds of the World as reference for our presentation today. It has a lot of useful information about all these birds. You can check it out if you want later. Yeah, first we have the Jacanas of the Powai Lake, the bronze-winged and the pheasant-tailed. Both of them are residents, meaning they're seen throughout the year and is seen in the wetlands of the lake. The breeding adult of the pheasant-tailed gets this long tail, as you can see here. What's really interesting about these birds is that it's actually the male that incubates the eggs and takes care of the chicks. So at least in the bronzewing, it holds the chicks under the wings, under its wings, and takes them around. The female generally just assists in defending the young from predators. So if you walk along the lake during monsoon, which is when they breed, you'll probably hear them alarm calling frantically to shoo away dangers. Next, we have the purple heron. So these are quite large birds and they stand around 90 centimeters tall. They are found throughout the lake again, and they can be seen sitting motionlessly. Like in the picture, they can just be sitting, waiting to strike fish that swim by. Sometimes for 15-20 minutes, you will see that they've not moved at all. They're just waiting patiently to catch fish and gulp them down. Next up, we have the black-crowned night heron. This, like the purple heron, also stalks its prey. So it's like fish, frogs, and insects mainly. It is mostly nocturnal, but can be seen during the day in these dense tree covers. And also the breeding adult of this gets these head plumes that you can see in the photograph. They are residents, but especially during monsoon, you'll see quite a few of them flying around the lake. during evenings mostly. Yeah. Next, we have the cinnamon bittern. While these are mostly residents, they are more visible during monsoon season as they breed during this time. So you would probably see them fly from one reed patch to another in the lake, and but it's rather difficult to spot them sitting in the reeds because they're quite well camouflaged. So sometimes what happens is you'll see them fly and they sit in the reeds and just disappear. They also have they have similar prey as the other herons that I talked about. Next, we have the striking bird, the Indian paradise flycatcher. It's seen throughout the wooded patches along the lake. The adult males have these elegant tail streamers that you can see on the right here, and they're also found in two moths, the rufous and white moth. Only the male has the white moth, though. They hunt in a similar way as the bee eaters that Ikshan talked about a little earlier. Next, we have the egrets. So there are mainly four egret species that are found around the lake. There's the little, intermediate, and great that you can see in the left, the photo on the left, from left to right, little, intermediate, great. So in the breeding plumage, again, the little gets these head plumes like the night heron does, and the great has these filmy wing plumes, and they generally feed on fish and crustaceans and aquatic insects, etc. But the cattle egrets on the right, they are found generally a little bit further away from the lake, so where they feed on mainly insects and sometimes fish. And in the photo, you can actually see both the breeding and non-breeding. The difference is quite stark. The breeding one gets this saffron color, and the non-breeding is white. Yeah. Next, we have the woolly-necked stork. This was spotted just once in the lake, and that too only last year. They're quite rare here, and but the unfortunate thing is that they are listed as near threatened on the IUCN Red List, mostly due to habitat destruction, probably. And yeah, so they mainly feed on the same sort of fish, frogs, and even snakes sometimes. Next up, we have the Indian grey hornbill. They are seen in most urban woodlands. They have this prominent casque on the bill. It's a little bit smaller in females. Uh, but these actually have a very interesting nesting practice. But this story is quite popular, so you might know this. But the females seal off the nest cavity in trees, and it remains there until the chicks grow up a little. And during this time, they don't get out. Only the male brings food for the female and chicks. So they generally eat small fruits like figs, and so are very important seed dispersers. But during breeding, they also feed on insects. Next, we have the common kingfisher. You'll probably see these diving to catch fish in open waters and streams with nice perches nearby. Um, So the picture on the left shows the female, and as you can see, it has an orangish color on the lower mandible. That is the lower part of the bill. The male lacks this, of course. Next, we have the white-throated kingfisher. These, unlike other kingfishers, are a little less dependent on water bodies and are often found in the wooded areas near the lake, where they mainly prey on insects and small snakes and sometimes even fish. Next up, we have terns. There are mainly three species of terns seen in the lake, whisker terns being the most abundant. That's the one on the left. They can sometimes be seen in flocks of 30, 40 diving to catch fish and aquatic insects in the lake. Uh, Generally, these terns aren't, they're not really they're talked about with excitement, and they're not generally, given as much, they're not showcased as much, but I really do like them. The In the breeding, the whisker tern gets all this black and reddishness on the bill and all that. And in the middle, we have a gull-billed tern. those are generally a little less reliant on fish and more so on frogs, and they generally eat crustaceans and insects. They have this stout bill, as you can see. And of course, on the right, we have the river tern. They have this incredible yellow bill that's there throughout the year, not just in breeding. Though this is seen a little less often in the Powai Lake area. Next, we come to the Grasshopper Wobbler. This is a long-distance migrant that breeds in Western and Central Europe, and it comes all the way here to winter in India. This was first seen in 2017, but then again last year in the shrubs on the periphery of the lake. This is especially threatened by shrub clearance. I'll talk about this more towards the end. Next, we have scaly-breasted munia. As you can see in this picture, they are generally found in groups. On the left, you can see, right? They feed on seeds and weeds in the scrubs near the lake. And also in the reed beds, these munias carry long blades of grass that are much larger than themselves to build nests. You'll probably see them carry these from one place to another during breeding season. Next up, we have Baya weavers. The weaver birds used to visit a site near a little away from the lake till about 2015 regularly, but unfortunately they stopped coming due to construction activity. But the good thing is they were recently spotted in the reeds of the lake. The male, which is the one on the extreme left, they build these nests out of grass plates, these bell-shaped nests, and the females inspect each of them and choose the best one. Yeah. Next, we have the Jacobin Cuckoo. These are called the harbingers of rain, as they arrive in most places in India just before the monsoon. So they can be seen near the woodlands of the lake, and like many cuckoos, lay their eggs in in other birds' nests and depend on them to raise their young. And like the common hawk cuckoo that Ikshan talked about, they use babblers as their host. These birds also have mythological significance. This is the southern cowcal, I believe also called Bharatwaj in Hindi. They are of the cuckoo order, but they are not brood parasites. They build their own nests. These residents are seen in the woodlands around the lake, just like the others. Next, we come to spotted owlets. These owlets are nocturnal, but are often seen in these in nest cavities and these dense tree covers during the day. The unfortunate thing, though, is that there have been many instances where people go way too close to them to get a better look, because they're in nest cavities and they're easy to approach. That makes them easy to approach also, and but this causes them to abandon the roost at least for a substantial amount of time. And I think this is a great example of how we should perhaps control our excitement when we see a bird, and instead of wanting a better photo or indeed a better sighting, we should ensure that we don't disturb wildlife and put the birds first. Though we have focused on birds for this presentation, we can't help but mention other forms of wildlife that live near the lake. Along with many species of dragonflies, butterflies, and insects, we also have the Indian grey mongoose. These are often seen prancing about on the periphery of the lake. Next, we have the Vigorous Sunbird. These are generally seen on the trees along the lakeshore and are endemic to the Western Ghats, meaning they're seen nowhere else in the world. The male has a striking red color and the female has this olive green color, as you can see in the photos. Finally, we come to the Indian pitta, also called the Navrang in Hindi because it has 9 colors. It's often seen in the undergrowth and shrubs and scrubs on the periphery of the lake. Here in the Powai region, we generally see them in May, June time, but last year it was also recorded in October. They seem to migrate to North India in the summer from the south, but there are a few resident populations here and there. What is quite remarkable about all the birds that we talked about today is that they all live in and around the lake, and perhaps we humans should learn from them and learn to coexist with them instead of trying to take over their habitats. With that, I'd like to come to some conservation issues concerning our lake. First, it's the indiscriminate clearing of shrubs and undergrowth along the lake shore. So these spaces are generally seen to be useless and unclean by most people, but in fact, they provide habitats for many insects and birds like the Indian pitta and tawny-bellied babbler, white-browed bulbul, and many, many more. Even the mongooses make use of this undergrowth. Also, another problem is the grass and reeds in the lake are cut as soon as they grow a little without considering nesting activities at all. This proves really detrimental to the birds that actually use these sites for nesting. And almost every year, for example, we see the red avadavats, which can be seen in the photo here. They visit the Powai Lake with hopes of nesting, and they can even be seen carrying blades of grass from one place to another in the reed patch. But within weeks of their arrival, the grass is just cut off, and they seem to disappear after that. We just don't see them too late into the winter. These grass patches are also used by many elusive birds such as warblers, crakes, rails, and by just removing all these reeds, these birds will have no place to roost and feed. So at the very least, grass cutting must be done after considering breeding behavior. Another threat is the discharge of untreated sewage and immersion of idols. The deteriorating water quality has had adverse effects on the fish in the lake, and this was talked about in much detail by other speakers previously. But also, the low amounts of oxygen and excess organic material, they've all led to fishes dying. This this can have adverse effects on the birds that primarily feed on fish, like ospreys, darters, the terns, and cormorants, etc. And also, a lot of plastic makes its way into the lake, which has terrible effects on the ecosystem. The sewer in this photograph was actually thankfully cleaned last year by sanitation workers. But also, instead of expecting people to clean these places regularly, we should also probably try to ensure that the plastic doesn't make it there in the first place by spreading awareness and, making people aware of what uses these habitats. You can even see a night heron and pond heron in the space here. So yeah, now I believe Arghya will speak next.
Thanks, Aniket. Uh, yes, so I would like to present a few slides. Could I please get the presentation permission?
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
I think I have given you.
Yes, I got it. Good evening, everyone. I'm Arghya Sinha, and I'm an 8th grade student from Pudar International School, Powai.
Huh?
I'm also a part of the birding community here.
Both of
Uh,
yeah, sorry, my mic is on.
so
Sorry about
as
that, my
Ikshan
mic was.
and Aniket showed, yeah, it's okay, no problem. As Ikshan and Aniket showed, Powai Lake is very rich in terms of bird species and other uh, species of mammals and insects. Today, I will be talking about the data I've collected about the bird population of Powai Lake from a widely known among naturalists and trusted database called eBird. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, yes. Powai Lake on eBird. So first, what is eBird? eBird is an online database accessible to anyone and everyone on the internet. It is managed by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology in Ithaca, New York. It is one of the world's largest biodiversity-related databases with more than 100 million bird sightings recorded annually. This data is used to study bird distribution, abundance, habitat use, and population trends. It is collected using a scientific approach, and it is verified by some of the most knowledgeable bird distribution experts in the world. So eBird stores bird sightings from prominent birding locations around the world that are called hotspots. This image that you can see on the right here is of the Mumbai region on a map. The markers on the maps are hotspots. They are color coded according to how many species have been spotted at that location. This image you see in the middle is it's zoomed in of this area of Powai Lake. Powai Lake is actually part of two eBird hotspots, the IIT Bombay hotspot and the Powai Lake hotspot, as you can see in the figures. This is one and this is the other. The IIT Bombay hotspot on eBird lists 224 species. That's the third highest in the Mumbai suburban, after Bhandup Pumping Station, also called BPS, and Sanjay Gandhi National Park, also called SGNP. The Powai Lake hotspot, on the other hand, lists 111 species. The IIT Bombay hotspot on eBird is for the birds found on the institute campus as a whole. This includes both birds found on and around the IIT side of the lake, as well as other prominent birding locations such as the hillside area of the campus. From the eBird data for the campus, we identified the bird species that have been observed on and around the lake. This list comprises of 207 species of birds. On the other hand, the Powai Lake hotspot on eBird is specifically for the lake. The species recorded in this hotspot are covered in the IIT Bombay list except for a few bird species. We compared the two lists for the birds and made a combined one for both the hotspots. A few records in the Powai Lake list on eBird were found to be unreliable, as those species are unlikely to be found in this region and have not been included in the list. The final list had as many as 211 species of birds found in and around the Powai Lake. Now let's compare this with another prominent birding location in Mumbai, the Sanjay Gandhi National Park. The Sanjay Gandhi National Park, or SGNP, hosts 239 species as per the eBird database. In terms of size, it spans a huge area of 87 square kilometers, whereas Powai Lake is just about 2.1 square kilometers. Therefore, when we compare the two, Powai Lake hosts 88% of bird diversity of SGNP in just 2% of the area of the national park. This makes the lake an ecologically valuable resource for the city. It should be conserved and maintained for the people of Mumbai. Thank you.
Yeah, I will unmute all of you. And can, Ikshan, Aniketa, and Argya, can you switch on your, video? I have put
Yeah,
you
yeah.
on the stage so that, and I will unmute everyone. So, one by one, whatever questions, yeah, please, can be asked. Yeah, I have unmuted everyone.
Okay, maybe I can start.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Ikshan, I interrupted you. You said I can ask the question at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, so you were asking where the blue-tailed beaters come from, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the thing is, there's not any particular location where they come from. They, in the monsoon in the summers is when they breed. So they just go wherever the suitable habitat is available. So they basically burrow into um, mud cliffs that form along river banks. Now that sort of habitat is not present here at the Powai Lake, so they just leave this area at that time and then they return here.
So, but something which begs a question, you're mentioning birds that come from Central Asia and birds that come from other places, right?
Yeah.
Uh, have you thought about the trials and tribulations that they must face? Because obviously they have to go from green patch to green patch to green patch, and as more and more of these green patches are being wiped out, right? Has anyone made a study of these kind of things as to what is the effect
I'm
and how
pretty
they might?
sure for larger birds, there have been studies like where they catch the bird and attack GPS trackers to the bird. For smaller birds, I don't think that many studies have been done because it's hard for the smaller birds to carry the equipment on them.
Quite
So,
true.
I mean, I don't know if any for like any birds that winter in India. I don't know if they've done any studies for that, but I'll give an example. For example, in the UK, they put these GPS trackers on a bird known as the osprey. So, and they figured out that they winter in Western Africa, like Senegal and Gambia, and then they make that that they travel that distance every year. So I mean, and they as the GPS trackers continuously gives the information, so it tells when the bird stops in the middle, where it stops, and all of that. So yeah, so I mean, for the larger birds, as I said, I think the data is there for certain species.
Where is the data?
If you just search, I'm pretty sure it should be there. I mean, I have not really looked into this that much, but this is something I heard on a YouTube video where one expert was talking about how they track the ospreys. So
That's
the
really
persons, yeah, sorry,
no, it's really interesting to know. So, how big is your tribe in IIT Bombay?
of regular birders, I think it's 25 to 30 people.
Okay, that's really interesting. And all of you guys are roaming around with these big lenses and all that, right?
No, everyone does not have big lenses. I have a fairly big lens, but there are people with even bigger lenses. So yeah.
Okay,
Professor
fine.
Kabir, yeah, just I want to add. See, I
Yes.
started, just one year or 1 year, 3 months back. And at that time, I used to wonder how come these people remember so many birds. But now, after 1 year of almost doing every day, I'm very happy that all the birds which they showed, almost, 95% of them, I have seen them myself in the Powai Lake and I know the name. So it's just, matter of, doing it every day. And of course, we are very fortunate that we are able to see them so fast.
Okay. No, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Actually, Kavi, just to add a little bit to what Ikshan has told you, that in India, some of the smaller birds are beginning to be, tagged as well. And I think one of the things which the Wildlife Institute of India did last year or a year before, they tagged a couple of these pied cuckoos, and these are believed to migrate from Western and Southern Africa. And I haven't seen the results as yet, but last I heard was that they had tracked them till about Somalia, and they were planning to publish the results sometime this year or so. And the other way of actually looking at it without tagging, particularly for small birds, because even to tag this pied cuckoo or the Jacobin's cuckoo, they had to get hold of very small GPS sort of things to tag them, which are just a few grams in weight. Is from eBird data, which Arghya talked about, that if they're migrating, then their populations will vary month to month depending on where they're going. And by collating eBird data, actually a lot of migrations of cuckoos, smaller birds as well, have been put together. I mean, in India, eBird is just catching up. I mean, Kerala is way ahead of the rest of the country, but in most of the country, it's just catching up. And but in the US, you find that the number of people who have tagged it have been enormous for a long period of time. So it has been possible to also follow the migratory routes of birds from this citizen science project, which Arghya highlighted a little while ago. This is just to add a little bit to what Ikshan has already said.
Yeah, it's fascinating to know. Thanks, Dhruv.
Yeah, eBird actually has a lot of data for migration. They publish like full maps about where the birds are going. They animate them to show that they're moving south or north according to the season. So eBird is a great place to find these records for birds.
Hey, do any of you guys do birding walks? Do you take people on little tours and all that on the weekends?
Well, I mean, if some of our friends ask, we do take them, but I mean, as such, nothing on a very large scale.
Would you like to do that on a regular basis if we could kind of fix it up? Because there might be campus
Yeah,
residents who might be interested.
sure. But I mean, not in the monsoon, because the monsoon doesn't have that many birds. In the winters we have much more birds, not just in like this in terms of species, but also numbers are much higher in the winters.
Okay, that's interesting.
In
Thanks.
February this year, we had actually, Ikshan and Aniket had actually taken a group of birders from IIT. So there was a great backyard bird count, again hosted by eBird partly. So about like 10, 15 people used to go out for like 2-3 days and submit checklists. So we've done a little bit, but not very much. Yeah.
Within the 3 days, we found around 90. Is it how many species? I forgot.
I think it was about 85, Vichu.
85. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And this was probably the first time that IIT Bombay formally participated in this campus bird count. So next year, if the community increases, or even if it doesn't increase, we should be able to do better. And I think the community will increase with all the sort of effort which has been put in.
I believe
Do people from Hiranandani kind of come and do bird watching here? Is there much instance of that?
Not many, I think, because most of the people we run into are IITians or friends of IITians. I think they have to pass the security, they have a reason to come in. One doesn't often find people from outside, but occasionally you do interested birders come in.
Do you think there's a case for kind of organizing little tours for people from there to kind of sensitize them to what they have here?
It is worth it, actually. It's worth it.
We can start with the schools, no?
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, one thing to add here, this is Krishnendu, that there was a similar activity planned by Podar International School in Hiranandani next to the hospital. So they got about 100 students to the campus. This was probably 2-3 years back, along with
2018.
teachers. Yeah, and we were kind of partly involved with it because Arghya goes to that school, and we kind of guided them to go around the lake and do some bird watching.
Yeah, I would like to add something here regarding this bird taking tours out for the bird visits. You can always approach there is this fishing club out there, uh, some angling club out there. They have their boats, and I'm sure they would be ready to entertain such kind of activity wherein you can go actually through the lake on the whole of the borders at any time of the year. That shouldn't be a problem at all. We should request them. Maybe that should work out.
Okay, that's interesting.
Another thing to add is that we have come across some people from BNHS who come to the campus for bird watching. I don't have the details because this has been a couple of years back, but there are people who come. And we have also heard that there's a guy called Rakesh Mongi, I think. He writes in one of the leading newspapers every Sunday, I think, about a column on nature. We have heard that he also comes to the campus once in a while, but others may know this more. This is just something which I've heard casually.
I was told Salim Ali himself used to come to the campus for watching birds. Means, is it true? Means, I've heard this.
No, that's true. He actually wrote pretty highly about Bombay, about IIT Bombay and birding over here. But that was, of course, many, many years ago.
No, but still, yeah, these are very good points to, put to conserve the lake. Yeah.
1 minute, I believe Megha is asking in the chat if any other bird species have, stopped visiting here due to sewage dumping and pollution. I believe this one bird that is seen less often these days, I think, is the osprey, which we see pretty erratically. Earlier, I think it used to come further into the lake, like this side of the lake. Now we see it we don't see it that often. And also earlier, I believe even those Asian open bills and all used to be here, stocks, but now we don't really see them come to the lake per se, just fly over.
And also a similar thing to the osprey is the white-bellied fish eagle. We're not sure if they used to be very common, but they were definitely present in the lake area. Nowadays, it's just I think this year someone saw it just fly by, but I don't think they've properly seen it sitting or fishing or anything like that.
This is Naresh. I just wanted to add that this lockdown last year kind of because of less amount of traffic, we had lot more number of birds in 2020. Then I have seen lot more than, for example, Ikshan, what was that in the ground? What was that ibis?
The red-naped ibis, yeah.
Red-naped ibis. That was not probably seen very, very long back, but due to COVID, we saw that bird. So there are. This clearly says that human intervention is really stopping the. Has influenced the birding decline in the number of bird species that we see around Powai Lake, but lockdown kind of made that aberration. So that some of them got back for a year at least. In fact, 2 years straight we saw that red-naped ibis at the Gymkhana grounds.
They're still here actually. A few days back when I saw them through the basketball courts. There were 2 of them. They spent about half an hour in the ground.
The hoopoe was also seen last year after quite some time, no? From what I gather.
So the hoopoe actually we don't see them that often generally. Even in the past years, we only saw it a couple of times. But I think in 2019 we didn't see it at all. And then again last year there was quite a few sightings. And earlier this year, like January, February, we also saw them.
Saw them, yeah.
So, does anyone have any other questions?
No, thanks. This has been a very articulate and very lucid presentation. Really impressed, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having
thank
us.
Thanks very much. This has been nicely done.
Thanks,
Yeah.
thanks to everybody, and thanks for having us.
So Abhyudaya will, we have recorded, so it will be put in Abhyudaya in their site through YouTube. Huh?
Okay. So, so thank you for attending, everyone.
Thank
So,
you
yeah.
very much.
Grant?
Well, maybe on behalf of Abhyuday, as the mentor of Abhyuday, I can thank you guys. You've done a wonderful job. One wouldn't have guessed that you were at school. Very maturely done, very well presented, very lucidly done so. And I think it inspires us to study these birds a little bit more. And I think you achieved what you set out to do. And I myself I'm inspired now to kind of spend more time on the shores of the lake looking at birds, right? So maybe one of these weekends you can take us along with you. So thank you very much, and a big hand from all of us for a job well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.